Testing 1 2 3. Testing 1 2 3. So by the way, guys, testing. They're ready to come online finally for a new day of streaming. Yo, what's up? Welcome back to Vencabot sound design tutorial action. My name is David. Yo, can you guys believe that in one episode we made this amazing modular synth patch? Like, holy fuck. That's crazy. I'm just joking. We didn't make this last time. It's actually something I had flying around. This is what we made last time. Let's load it up. Let's load it up. Our first kick drum. It's a little bit simpler. Okay, this is what we made last time. It's not as much, that's for sure. But it's still pretty cool. Right? So today I want to talk about filtering and noise in particular. Right? Last time we covered VCOs, LFOs, ADSRs, and VCAs, mostly. Before we move on, though, to VCFs, that's voltage-controlled filters, and how to use noise effectively, let's review very quickly what we sort of have here. Right? So I'm going to lower the volume here a little bit. So the beepity-boop isn't quite as loud. We made a sort of bit-ish kick drum, not that compelling of a sound, but it was our first sound we made all by ourselves. And we've got two VCOs running here. Now, VCOs are oscillators. Again, they're little, not sure how they work internally, but some kind of mechanism where it makes this little thing vibrate back and forth at such a speed to actually create a sound. And we got two of these things actually making a sound, right? And the rest of the stuff here is there to manipulate the sound. It strikes me, before we get too far, though, let me review real quick. This actually is VCV Rack. It's an open source program. You can get it at VCVRack.com. Totally free. Very nice. Very fun for not only learning the sound design, but also just for playing with. A really fun little toy here if you want to make some cool sounds and stuff. This VCV Rack actually emulates real-life physical hardware synthesis kit. Modular synthesis has been around since the 60s, maybe even earlier. And what you do is you get these little pieces of hardware, little boxes that are full of electronic components, and you plug them into each other using these patch cables, right? They all have outputs and inputs. You plug them in manually into each other and turn some knobs and sliders and shit, and you can make your own sounds and stuff. Now, back in the day, they were analog, and now we've gone so far the other direction, it's all in software. So again, this is actually, you see the little screws here in the actual physical rack. These modules are meant to represent metal boxes that you're kind of screwing into place. This is meant, again, to emulate like a real-life modular synth, but of course it's all in software in this case. So we have two things making sound, right? One is making a sine wave at a very low frequency, so this little knob here turned all the way to the left, and you can see the sine wave output of this module being plugged into this VCA, where it's getting some volume output, right? So basically, we're getting sound, a very low sine wave, with kind of like a very simple waveform, and it's going right into this VCA to get us some audio. The second one is a square wave. See the square wave output of this one's coming out, and its frequency is a little bit higher, not by much. Let's go look at compare them side by side. Right, very slightly higher frequency, and it's a square wave, a much more complex waveform. It has a little bit more oomph to it in terms of the frequencies that it covers. Aside from that, we have this this LFO here. LFO is putting out a square wave, which is just an on signal for a while, then an off signal for a while. On and off, right? So kind of that sort of thing there. And what this thing is doing, the square wave, it's controlling the gate of this ADSR. Well, what's an ADSR? Well, this is a attack, decay, sustain, release envelope generator, it's called. And what it does is it outputs this control voltage that ramps up in an attack phase, which you can decide how long it takes to go from 0 to maximum. Here we have a very quick attack phase, right? Very far to the left there means very quick, very short amount of time, I should say. Right? The more you raise this, the more time we get. In fact, I can raise that right now. Watch this. Now I can lower it. There you go. More like a kick, right? More like a boom. So we have this, we can control the time it takes to go from being totally at 0 to being at maximum. It has a decay phase where it falls down, you can control how long it takes for it to fall down from the maximum down to the sustain level. Right? Our sustain level is around max right now, or around minimum, around the middle, right? So middle amount of time, middle amount of voltage, I mean. So in this amount of time, the decay is a time, and sustain is a level. Right? As long as the gate is open, we're going to rest at the sustain level. Then the release phase happens after the gate closes. That's how long it takes to go from the sustain level back down to 0. We learned about that last time, guys. So it's sort of like it's a shape, basically, right? The ADSR controls a shape of a voltage that goes up and then down and stays at a level, and then trails off to nothing again. Right? Attack, decay, sustain level, and then the release phase goes back down to 0. So this is a time, attack time, decay time, sustain level, and release time. How long from 0 to max? How long from max to sustain? Here's the level for the sustain. How long from sustain to 0? As these knobs control. Right. And these VCAs here are meant to scale a voltage. Right. They amplify. They're called voltage controlled amplifier. Right. And they control the amplitude of a voltage. So what we're doing here with this amp is we are, let's see what's going on here. We have this in signal from the ADSR. Okay. So this one here is controlling the volume. Maybe it's a Glassjaw. This one here is controlling the volume of our kick. Right? The ADSR is controlling the volume of the kick, and we're scaling that volume by some amount, so it's not going to be totally deafening. Let go my Prego. We got Glassjaw. Very interested in sound design Glassjaw. There's another ADSR here that's controlling, I don't even remember what, to be honest. Couldn't tell you. But anyway, so we have this other VCO here, which, oh yeah, so one of these controls, oh, see, so one of these controls the pitch. This one here is controlling the pitch. Right, so we were trying to control how high the pitch goes. If I raise this up, watch this. Right. It goes from a higher pitch to a lower pitch. Not very drum-esque, right? We don't want the pitch to ever go that high. So I'm going to lower the maximum pitch. There we go. There we go. So now it's still a pitch change over time, but it's not as dramatic of a pitch change over time, right? So I'm kind of controlling this voltage here for. Here's the volume voltage, right, for this first kick. In fact, I can actually lower the square wave down to nothing. Now all we have is the sine. You can even see the sine wave right here, right in our scope. Right, just a little humpty shape. So yeah, so we have this ADSR here controlling the volume over time. Now a kick drum, you can imagine how that volume would work over time, right? It starts off very fast. It's just a boom, comes out of nowhere, doesn't rise up very slowly. You can imagine like a long attack phase being sort of like a violin, right? Rising in volume very slowly. Let's talk about a drum, right? That goes from being totally silent to being maximum volume, like more or less instantaneously. You can see that right here. Right. We have a decay phase where it drops down from the max volume to the sustain level. And here our sustain level is at 0, right? Which means there's no release phase. But what we're saying here is that we want this kick drum to come out of nowhere, boom, kick, it's a drum, boom, it explodes. And then it drops down from max volume to minimum volume over a course of time. Watch me shorten this. See? Now it's so, the decay phase is so short, there is pretty much no trail. You can still hear it ticking. But the attack phase is fast, and the decay phase is fast. Now watch this maximum decay. See? Now it decays very slowly. So the sound explodes out of nowhere because of the short attack phase. Let's raise the attack phase too. See how it slowly rises in volume now? So if I have to make this really short to get that kick, that boom. There we go. Try even shorter. Ooh, boom. I like that. All right, so when you have a very short attack phase, it goes from 0 to maximum very quickly. So it just sounds kind of comes out of nowhere. You're enjoying it, Glassjaw? I hope so. So I'm doing my damnedest here to explain how this works. So we have a very long decay phase. You guys recognize the sound, right? It's an 808 kick drum. An 808 drum, used in trap music a lot, is known for having a very long decay phase. So it booms, and then it trails off. Right? But a more traditional drum would have a much shorter decay phase. Now again, if we load it down to 0, or close to it, it's going to have pretty much no time to trail off. Right? No time to trail off. We want to try and find a good level where... Okay, not enough. There we go. Sounds more like a kick. Try a little bit more. I kind of like that. Boom. A little more. A little bit less. There we go. That works. We just got started, Zounds. We got started about 10 minutes ago, more or less. Welcome aboard, dude. Glasses, I don't know what the hell's going on, but I know you can make some sick-ass beats with this. You're right, dude. You're right. Yeah, it's a free software, Glassjaw. Definitely download and play if you have time. It's VCVRack.com. Let me demonstrate that real quick. So go to VCVRack.com. Download the software. It's very fun to play with. There's really very little risk to it. It's totally free and open source. There's no viruses or anything like that. Trust me. It's a very fun little piece of software to play around with and learn about sound design. I definitely recommend it. It seems like a lot at first. Go watch our previous episode of Glassjaw on YouTube. Our first episode is available on YouTube already, and I explain how to get VCV Rack installed and the very basics of what we've done so far. Right? I walk you through it step by step. We're already in episode 2. It's a little bit more advanced, but not by much. I'm kind of reviewing right now. Course class, of course. If you have any questions, let me know. So this is the one half of our kick, right? We have 2 VCOs here. I'm going to demonstrate that real quick. Look at this over here. Right? We have these 2 VCOs, one on this top one and one on the bottom one. Right? And these both make sound. So this one on top is making the sine wave sound, which we're controlling the pitch and the volume of over time. Right? So we just demonstrated how we're controlling the volume over time, right? This second ADSR up here controls the volume over time, right? Very fast attack phase, kind of slow decay phase, no sustain or release because it's just a drum sound. You can't sustain a drum sound, right? This one right here controls the pitch over time, right? So I'm going to raise the pitch amplitude for one thing. Watch this. Right, so a kick drum, you might not realize if you're not into sound design, but any kind of drum really, when you first strike it, it starts at a high pitch. Right? Starts at a very high pitch, and then it, over time, declines in pitch. So it's kind of like, right? It starts off high, and then goes down, right? And what I'm doing here is controlling the amplitude of that pitch difference. So here at a very high amplitude, we have a very large pitch difference, right? But for a kick drum, actually, it's a very small pitch difference. It starts off already pretty low, and then just goes even deeper, right? So I can lower that just right here. You can barely even notice it. If you're a sound designer with very sensitive ears, you can notice that it goes from a higher pitch to a lower one. It's very subtle with a kick drum. But I want to demonstrate the second ADSR, right? So the second ADSR is doing the same thing as the first ADSR is doing the same thing as the second one, right? It's controlling this shape of amplitude. So the second one here controls the volume. We just established that, right? Very short attack phase, comes out of nowhere, boom, and then trails off, right? The second ADSR here is very much the same, right? It's very much the same, right? It's just that it's controlling the pitch instead of the volume. I'm going to raise this again. Right. Watch this. So I can control how fast it goes from low pitch to high pitch with the attack phase. Right. So it goes off, it starts from the low pitch and goes high. Woo, woo, right? I want it to go from the minimum pitch to the maximum very quickly. Right, really quickly. I can control how long it takes to go from the maximum pitch, the highest, to the lowest too, watch. It's a little bit slower. Even slower. But I can do it very fast. Right. Right, we control how fast it changes its pitch. Now I can control how much its pitch changes right here. Okay. Now I want for the pitch change to happen mighty fast. So let's lower the attack and change this. There we go. There we go. So the intro to an under-ode song, huh? Okay, so there's our kick drum, right? That's the sine wave part of it. But we also have this other part, the square wave. Give a little bit extra flavor. Right? Let's go over here to our I'm gonna actually move this over here a little bit. Okay. So let's look at the second one. You don't hear it yet. I'm gonna actually mute our sine wave now. Let's go look at our scope. Right. So here's our scope. You can see it's a sine wave shape. Right, very simple. But here's what I'm going to do. I am going to get rid of the sine wave altogether. Oh, there's nothing. Right. No sound. But I'm going to bring in the square wave that we have. Okay. Sounds a little bit different, right? Quite a bit different. It has a lot more much more complex frequency range. Sun still sleeps. I'm from under oath. I'm not sure I've heard it. Anyway, so now we have this square wave. And it sounds quite a bit different, right? A little bit funkier, for sure. But it has exactly the same makeup, right? It has 2 ADSRs. One controls the pitch change over time, and one controls the volume over time, right? And the volume over time is pretty much the same. Now I think this sounds like maybe a little bit higher frequency than we want for a kick. Let's bring in the sine wave again and see how they mix together. This might be a little bit high pitched for my taste for a kick. See, no. For one thing, it has too long of a trail. You can hear that trail off of the square wave very clearly. So here's what we're going to do. Let's go here to our decay phase. Well, first, let's lower these to 0 of the... Okay, so I want to lower the pitch range it can travel. Let's lower the frequency first of all, right? So if you look at our sine wave, VCO, you can see over here, let me actually move this over here so you can see a little better, that the frequency for our sine wave right here is quite a bit lower than the frequency for our square wave right here. Let's lower this second one. Ooh. Okay. Make it really high. Okay. Make it really low. Ooh. Kind of like that, right? A little growl to it. I'm going to raise it a little bit higher, though. Right? But again, it sounds so obvious that they're mixing because the square wave has a very long trail. You hear the square wave for a very long time. Let's shorten that a little bit. Oh, I can see what's happening here. This is the volume decay. There we go. Okay. Again, it's still a little bit too long. I'm going to try and raise the pitch a bit here. Right on there. Lower the speed even more. Leave it around there, perhaps. So you get a little extra oomph. Let's get rid of the square altogether. Watch. Okay. It's gone. Here it is back. Right, just give it a little extra punch. Okay, so we're gonna call that our basic kick drum. Right, it's our kind of the first sound we made last time. Our very first ever sound. Kind of cool, right? Kind of cool. So let's start working on our second sound today, making like maybe a snare, but also our second lesson, which is gonna be about filtering, frequency filtering, and noise, how to utilize noise correctly. So let's make a whole new patch from scratch, right? Let's just do new patch. Yeah. Right, we got nothing now. Totally empty, right? So what's the first thing we need? Well, we need to have this audio. We go to our core library here, core author. These come with VCV Rack, and we're going to use the audio module. This represents the device that plugs into our speakers. Again, this is supposed to be a simulation of a real-life modular synth, which again, a bunch of metal boxes you plug into this rack. Of course, it's all software in this case. So this represents the box that goes to our speakers. Right? So we have to plug things into here for it to make any noise at all. Let's get that over there. All right. Also, let's get some kind of volume control. Let's use a mixer in this case. Right. So let's go down here to our fundamental author and use the mixer module to control volume from 4 different sources. Right. So what the mixer does here, I think I didn't really talk too much about this last time, but it takes 4 different inputs of sound or anything, any voltages you want, and then it outputs them through this mix output. Now you can plug that right into your speakers, and then you can kind of control the volume of 4 different things, right? Because these 4 sliders controls the volume, or the amplitude, I should say, right? The amplitude. Because it doesn't just control audio, it controls anything, right? We talked before about how in a modular synth, the voltages are totally interchangeable, right? Whether that voltage is meant to control your speakers and make sound, or if it's meant to control another module through some kind of CV input, control voltage. Right? That's really where a lot of the dynamism comes from in a modular synth, is using a voltage to control some other module over time. Anyway, so let's get this. So we have the mixer now. Let's plug the mix output into the speaker input, right? Control click to get a second chord from the same output. You can do a little splitter that way. So I just plugged the mix of our mixer, the output, to the left and right speakers. I want to change our audio driver by clicking this, boom, to direct sound. It's better for Windows. And no device, change it to our default device. Okay, that's all well and good. All right, so now we have this audio output going to our speakers. It's configured correctly for our speakers. We have this mixer, controls the volume, and we talked before last time, right, about how when you're working with sound design, it can be somewhat dangerous for your ears, especially if you have headphones on. For God's sake, be careful with headphones on. And also for your equipment, your speakers. Of course, in real life, that's kind of, especially that second half, the speaker part, it's not really as dangerous as some suggest. Your speakers take a lot of punishment in 2019. But for your ears, depending on your volume you have Windows set to, by all means, when you're making a sound, always start off with minimum volume. Always. Right? And then gradually raise it to hear things. Because sometimes, especially as a beginner, it can be unpredictable how loud a sound's going to be. Right? You don't want to hurt your ears. Whether it be, physically, like actual damaging your hearing, which is very unlikely, or just pissing yourself off. It's very annoying when a suddenly unexpected loud sound blows up. Right? It might not hurt your ears, but it's definitely goddamn obnoxious. Always start with minimum volume. So now we're going to get, let's get our first sound. We'll use a very simple sound like before. In fact, before we even do that, let's set up a scope. Right? So we got this, we talked before about how it can be helpful to see sounds, right? Let's do a right click here. Go to the fundamental library again. What's up, GameLuencer? How you doing, dude? Let's go down here and get our scope. This helps us visualize sounds. Right? So I'm going to get this mix from the mixer again and plug this into our scope. Actually, I see that our audio has an output. Right? It outputs our channels to another device if we want to. Let's just use that. Right? Let's just use the output for channel 1. Plug that into our X in for our scope to get an idea of what's going on here. I think you want X in, right? Or do you want Y in? I don't know. We'll find out. So Faust tried a solo raid earlier. Couldn't finish because I went full potato brain. How do you mean, Faust? What do you mean potato brain? So now we have a sound, we can see it. Let's demonstrate that by getting a simple VCO here. Right click. Go to the fundamental modules and get the VCO that comes with VCO1 that comes with our software here, VCV Rack. All right. So I'm gonna get the sine wave output of this and plug it into the first spot in our mixer, input 1. There you go. So now we have a sine wave going through. It's got 0 amplitude right now because the mixer is at 0, right? Let's raise it up. We should be able to hear it and see it. Yeah, I can't see if I put it in the wrong cable. Let's plug this into Y1, a Y in. Or maybe the output doesn't work. Before I do that, let me actually just control plus this the way I know how to. There we go. So we want X in. I'm not sure why the outputs don't work here. It's whatever. I have to turn them on somehow, perhaps. Anyway, so we have this sine wave, right? We can hear it. It's kind of obnoxious. We can change its pitch. I'm going to actually raise it a little bit more. I apologize, guys. I know hearing raw sound waves can be kind of rough. Okay. We can change the frequency here. And you can see how changing the frequency there is actually, let me lower the volume here a little bit. It's changing the literal frequency of these humps, right? The humps become less frequent. This is a amplitude over time, right? So here's our time. It's a fraction of a second. And if we raise the frequency, we get more of those humps the same amount of time. It becomes more frequent. Okay, so what kind of sound is the end project going to be? Today, probably a snare drum. But this is a tutorial game to Windsor. It's not related to any particular game right now. It's a tutorial on how to do some sound design. If you're a game designer, it could definitely be of a huge help to you. Or should I say a game dev. All right, change our frequency there. Change our amplitude here. Okay, that determines how loud it is. Right. Okay, cool. So we got the basics now. We can see our stuff here. I want to talk today about filtering. Right, how to get frequencies out of your sound. So let's demonstrate that real quick. I wish I could get this. Here's what I'll do. I'll get the scope down here. I think that means we can see it at all times now. Okay, that's good. Okay, we have the scope down there. I'm actually going to move this over a little bit so I can not have that cable be too much in the way. There we go. That works, right? Okay, so I want to demonstrate filtering today, right? As our project for the day. So let's get a more complex wave right off the bat. Let's go with a saw wave. I actually should probably lower the volume here. More complex sounds are always more, or I shouldn't say always, but from a VCO, oftentimes much louder. Okay, so we have this buzzing sound, right? This is a saw wave. It's probably the most complex wave you can get harmonically out of a VCO. When I say harmonically, I mean it has a higher frequency content. There's more different kinds of frequencies inherent to it. We're going to learn about that today more as we look at VCFs, right? Voltage-controlled filters. So I'm going to filter this sound. Let's get this right-click action here. Go to Fundamental, and pick the VCF1, or just VCF, that comes with VCV Rack. Boom. Okay, so let's see what kind of knobs we have. I'm going to lower the volume a little bit more. Kind of annoying. What kind of knobs we got here? We got a frequency knob, a fine knob for fine tuning, a res knob. Okay, what's that mean? We don't know yet, right? I know it stands for resonance. What does that mean? Frequency CV, again, that's for scaling the control voltage that goes input right here. That scales that up and down. And drive, gives it a little bit of distortion to get a nice little funky taste to it. We have an input for our sound. It's going to be filtered, and a low-pass filter output, and a high-pass filter output. Now, the low-pass filter will allow low or deep or bassy frequencies through, right? Lows can pass. And the high-pass filter will only allow higher pitch frequencies through. And this frequency knob determines where that cutoff is, right? So if I lower this down, well, let's say, let me put it this way. If I were using the low-pass filter output here, then all the frequencies below here would get heard, right? Would get through. And if I was using the high-pass filter output, all the frequencies above here would get heard. Right? And if I could mix both of those together, hypothetically speaking, we would hear all the frequencies. Of course, not really the case because of the electronics involved. But hypothetically, you would hear all the frequencies. We use the low pass and the high pass combined. Right? We're going to let the low pass through in this case, though. So let's put this VC. It doesn't really matter where it's at, right? But just for tightness' sake, let's put the VCF after the VCO, because we're going to be filtering the sound from our VCO through this VCF, right? The filter. So let's plug this input, unplug it from the mixer, and instead plug it into this filter. Right? There we go. And I'm going to raise the frequency all the way to maximum. Just punch it to max cutoff, it's called the cutoff frequency. And now I want to plug the low pass filter output here into where the input is in our mixer. Okay, let's see what this sounds like. Okay, it sounds exactly the fucking same. Right, what do we account? I'm going to raise the pitch a little bit. Right. Put it right around there. Lower, it's very annoying, I know, guys. This is sound design. Welcome aboard. So now we have, I'm going to raise it a little bit so you can see it on the scope down here. Ooh. See, it's a shape there? That's the sawtooth wave. You can see what's called a sawtooth, right? That's a sawtooth wave. I'm going to lower it down a little bit here. So the reason why it sounds the same as it ever did is because we're using the low pass filter, right? So only the low sounds are getting through, but our cutoff is at maximum. So every frequency below this is being heard. So that's all the frequencies, right? We're going from max anyway. So all the frequencies below max are being heard. Now we're going to lower the frequency, and we're going to start cutting off frequencies from the higher range, right? Because only the ones below this are allowed to pass. Let's raise it up in volume here. And we're going to sweep the filter. Okay, I'm going to raise the volume here a little bit. You can notice how as we lose frequencies, it becomes softer, right? Because we have fewer frequencies making noise. Okay. So let's talk about what's going on here. I'm going to lower this down to 0 and cut off all the frequencies. We have the follow game influencer. We do creative stuff here at least every Friday, oftentimes throughout the week as well. What's up, Jesus Philip? I can't wait for the movie. Going to order pizza. Hell yeah, dude. Oh, you are going to order pizza? Take a photo of it, Philip. Take a photo so we can see it on stream. Once you get it, of course. Okay, so let's talk about what we just heard. I'm going to demonstrate one more time here. I'm going to sweep the filter. So this is kind of like, it's kind of like what we did before with the amplifier, right? For the volume. We're changing how loud it is over time, right? That goes without saying. Or, based on how high this is. But not only is it changing the volume, it's changing the character of the sound, right? Because sounds, as we understand them as human beings in our ears, are defined by a few different things. And maybe the most primary thing is the frequency content of that sound. Right? That is to say, how many different frequencies of sine wave it takes to stack together to make that sound. So every sound, like my voice, for instance, in every instance, every instant that my voice is coming out, it has a certain mixture of frequencies in it, right? Inherent to it. And that's true of the saw wave as well. The saw wave, I'm actually going to lower the volume here and let it show its full saw wave again here on the scope down there. Right? That saw wave there has this shape to it, the shape of a sawtooth, kind of. And And that's because it's actually a whole bunch of different harmonic frequencies, sine waves, being stacked together. Right? As you stack sine waves together, which each represent only one frequency, you get these combination shapes of sound. Right? And you can use what's called additive synthesis to take any number of sine waves and you add them together to make your sounds. But what's really popular in analog synth, in most modern synthesizers, especially from back in the day, but even to this very day, is instead of adding sine waves together, you take a complex sound such as a saw wave or a square wave or a triangle wave, and you take frequencies away, right? So instead of adding a bunch of sines together to make a sound, you take a complex sound and you take frequencies away from it with this filter, right? So let's raise the volume here again. So here is our sawtooth wave at maximum complexity. It has a ton of, I'm actually going to lower the volume here on this side, so I can just get you guys a bigger picture of what this thing looks like. Right. So there's our sawtooth wave at maximum complexity. Right. It looks like a sawtooth, but I'm going to take away some frequencies now. The higher frequencies. It's going to become much a smoother sound. If we don't have that grating, high-pitchy sound, we're taking the high frequencies away, right? Much smoother. Ooh, so much smoother, right? It doesn't have that whine anymore because we took away the high frequencies. Take away even more. Even more. Now what you're going to see here is as we take frequencies away from a sine wave, it begins to approach a sawtooth wave. It begins to approach a sine wave in shape. I'm going to raise the volume here. Right? It looks more and more like a sine wave shape. Then as we add frequencies back in, it begins to look more and more like a sawtooth. I'm going to lower the frequency a little bit so we can see the shape better of each individual hump. Ooh, so bassy. Game says, how do you learn this stuff? I learned it over a long period of time, dude. Watching tutorials on YouTube, reading stuff, and experimenting. Ooh, that's kind of nice. That frequency, we have a low pass sawtooth wave here. Right? Very, very bassy, very low in this case. So I'm going to add some frequencies back in. Watch the shape of these sawteeth. And hear the difference. Okay. You can hear that high-pitched whine now, right? You can hear that growl. Right? And I can take the high frequencies away. Okay. Now I just have the bassy stuff left, right? Just keep taking it away. In fact, and we eventually get this sine wave shape because now we have pretty much very few frequencies left. Sort of like clipping, not so much like clipping in this case, but it does kind of sound like clipping, right? Yeah, but in terms of actual sound engineering, it's not really like clipping at all. But it does kind of sound like it, right? So hear it again. It kind of does sound like that sort of like that staticky sound of a clipping, right? In this case, it's unrelated, but it does sound similar, you're right. Okay. So, we talked on our first episode about how sound design and synthesis are very much about changing sounds over time. In fact, in real life, when we talk about sounds, whether we realize it or not, we're talking about how frequency spectrum is changing over time. Right, sound and music and whatever you want to talk about related to sound is takes place over an amount of time. Right, every sound starts and then it ends in some amount of time. And when you design a sound, you control how that sound changes from start to finish. Right, I think Game Influencer just joined us. He missed our kick drum from earlier, but the kick drum we control the pitch of it over time, because when you hit a drum, boom, it starts off at a high pitch and then drops down quickly to a low pitch. Right, so that's a change over time in pitch. Also, a drum will change in volume over time very quickly, right? It goes from being totally silent, you smack it, it's boom, very loud instantly, and then it drops off in volume very quickly in most cases. And if you're in a large room, it might actually kind of trail, right, the echo sound. Basically, in that case, we controlled the pitch and the volume over time, right, of a couple very simple waveforms to make our kick drum. Now, today we can add a new feature to our roster, to our palette of things to change over time. In this case, we're talking about changing the frequency content over time using a filter. right? So now we can do things like make trumpets and stuff, because a trumpet, when you blow it, it gets more frequency content over time, right? So you can do things like, let me raise the pitch here. Right. Right. You can kind of make that sound of a horn, because the horns start off with mostly low frequencies. Then as you blow harder into them, they get more high frequencies inherent to their sound. So if we use an ADSR, for instance, let's do that, right? Let's actually use that now. Let's where should I add that here to make it make more sense visually? Again, these wires, the order doesn't really matter where you store, where you move these things to, but it can be helpful to know what's going on if you put them in a certain order. So I want for the ADSR to control the VCF, right? Let's do that then. Let's put the ADSR right here. Go to the fundamental library and get our attack, decay, sustain, release envelope generator, just like last time. Right? We talked before about how this thing controls the shape of a voltage over time, right? Which is totally inherent to how you design sounds, right? It has an attack phase where it goes from a 0 voltage to maximum voltage, a decay phase where it goes from the maximum to a sustained level, which you also can set. Then it stays at that level as long as the gate voltage is open, right? Or anything higher than 1, anything higher than 0. So once the gate becomes, the voltage that goes inside here becomes 0, it cuts off that gate. When the gate cuts off, we drop down from the sustained level to 0 again in this release time, right? We have an attack time here. When the gate first opens, the attack time determines how long it goes from 0 to maximum, right? And then immediately after the attack phase ends, in this amount of time we've set, we have the decay time. Decay goes from the level it was, maximum level, down to the sustained level in this amount of time. Right, you control it, minimum time here, maximum time here, very long, very short amount of time, very long amount of time, very short amount of time, right? Starts off right in the middle by default. The sustained level is the voltage to hold at as long as the gate is open, right? So it goes up to maximum, then it decays to this one level that it stays at indefinitely. The sustained level is where the voltage is going to stay, right? And then once the gate closes, we have this release time, which determines how long it takes for it to go from the sustained level back down to 0, right? In this amount of time here. What's up, Steve? Going pretty well, dude. Talk about sound design, very basic type stuff. I feel like we're already getting kind of involved, for being a second episode. But you guys go watch on YouTube at youtube.com/Vencabot archive. We're just going there to look up Vencabot sound design or Vencabot VCV Rack. You'll find our last episode where we went over the very, very, very basics and explained more about what a VCO is, what an ADSR is, how to set this all up here. We're kind of in our second episode here talking more about VCFs, that is filtering, and soon noise. Right? So let's use this ADSR here to control the frequency of this VCF. Now, we talked in the first episode about how modular synthesis is so much about plugging modules into modules, right? So we have this frequency knob, right? And we can control the knob, of course, with our literal fingers, or in this case with a mouse. But we also have this frequency input, which takes a voltage. This will control this knob for us, right? So we can use this ADSR to control this voltage, right? To control the frequency. So as the attack phase goes from 0 to maximum, this knob will go from 0 to maximum, right? And then the decay phase will go from maximum to our sustain level, to be right around here, or right around here. And then it sustains there for a while, and then it releases. There's the follow Angry Moose on the Loose. Interesting handle there, dude. Game Mode says, this is pretty cool. Works for sound effects for games, right? Hell yeah, dudes. Anything you want to record. You can make your own sounds this way, record the sound, put it in your game as a WAV file. Right? You just got to record the sound that you make. Anyway, so, we can emulate a attack, decay, sustain, release phase manually, right? So we start off at 0 voltage. When the gate opens, we have an attack phase. It goes to maximum over some amount of time, right? That's the attack phase. Then the decay phase, where it drops from maximum to a sustained level, right there. Then the gate closes, we have a release phase. Goes back to 0, right? So we have the entire thing, it'd be like this. That's attack, decay, sustain, release, right? It'd be like that. Saw guys talking about sound design. Reddit's an open source project. Dude, open source, man. Go download it right now. VCV Rack, such an awesome piece of software. It's right here, right? You go to VCVRack.com. Really awesome modular synth for Windows, Mac, and Linux, I believe. You'd expect that for, yeah, Linux right there. You'd expect that from an open source project. Really nice. I love it. It's really fun to play around with. I used to use a program on Linux called ALSA Modular Synth. This is a little bit more complete, a little bit nicer looking in terms of the UI and stuff. Very, very functional. Very nice. Very nice. No one word, Angry Moose. Anyway, so we're going to use this ADSR now to control this VCF. So once you have the output here, right, we have to control the gate somehow. Let's use an LFO like last time, right? I'm going to use the LFO right here. LFO is a low frequency oscillator. And that means that I'll show you guys the waveform down there. Let's make an LFO right here. I'm going to put it down here, I suppose, for now. And we're going to show you guys the LFO first of all, right? So let's go down here, unplug our sound from the scope. Instead of using a sound to a frequency that's so fast it triggers our ears to hear it, right? Basically, when you have a change in pressure from your speakers that's fast enough, your ears will perceive it as a sound. Here we're talking about a change in amplitude or change in pressure, whatever you want to call it. It's so slow you would never hear it, but it does kind of make sense to us as human beings as this change in time we can measure, right? An actual sound is so fast that we can't really measure it without some kind of device, right? It's so fast we can hear it, we can't really measure it. But here we're talking about an LFO. This thing goes like in a sine wave shape. It goes ooh, ooh, right? Really, really slow, and we can kind of perceive it. Let's actually plug the sine wave into this. And you can see it changing over time. I'm actually going to try and raise our Y scale so we can see it more clearly. No, let me actually raise the time, I mean. Is that what I need? Can I do this? Actually, I don't know I don't know what these knobs do. There we go. So we can see, you know, the shape of this LFO, right? It's very, very slow, though. Very, very slow. Super, super slow. Compared to an actual audible change in pitch. Right. What I can do with this, thanks for the follow, Patman0023. Hard to see changes when, yeah, exactly. Yeah, so that's why you can see these little cutoffs here. You can see the samples. Anyway, so I want to, the sample rate of this scope, I mean. But I want to use the LFO here, the square wave, which simply turns on and off. See? On and off, on and off, on and off. I'm going to use that as our gate. So I probably want to slow it down quite a bit. Okay. So now it's too slow right there. Yeah, still too slow. Okay, now it's on. Now it's off. Now it's on. Now it's off. That's what we want, right? We're going to use that for our gate. For our ADSR here, just like last time. There we go. So now we have this ADSR that's being triggered whenever this LFO comes on. And the gate closes when it turns off. You can see it right here, actually. See the light right there? All right. Now the gate is open. And now the gate is closed. Right? That's because our LFO has a square wave shape that turns it on and turns it off. We're going to use that as our sort of our rhythm for this frequency change, this ADSR for our VCF. So let's plug what am I doing here? I want to plug this back down into this, the mix back down into our scope, right there. Okay, so let's see if I can get this sound working again. I want to raise the frequency here. Okay, cool beans. Excellent, excellent. Sweet. Patman, that name sounds kind of familiar, Patman. Toss a post up on the Twitch streamers list on the official forum if you haven't yet, and I'll try to add you to the main post. I have no clue what you're talking about, Patman. Do I know you? Welcome aboard. Okay, so, that name sounds familiar, Patman0023, but I'm not sure we've met. I'm David if we haven't. Welcome aboard, dude. Anyway, so I want to have this ADSR control the frequency now. All right, so let's raise the frequency up a little bit so we can hear things. Okay, so I feel like here we go. There we go. Okay. So now you can hear this change over time, right? Attack phase, decay phase, sustain, release. Attack, decay, Sustain, release, right? So I can control, with this knob here, the frequency CV knob, how much this input, the CV right here, from our ADSR, controls the frequency. Right? And right now it's at 0, which means that it doesn't control the frequency at all. And that's why you have no, we don't hear anything right now. We don't hear a change in time. But I can make this positive, so that the frequency goes up and then down with the ADSR, or I can make it inverted, so it goes down then up. Right, for our purposes, we don't really hear much of a difference right now. Kind of subtle. Let's actually lower the pitch here. Ooh. I want it to go up dramatically. Okay, maybe even too dramatically. One of the lurking nobodies, huh? Also behind the NYSTHI manual project. I don't know what that is either. Can you try to simulate a phaser from it, huh? A phaser from the VCF? Oh, I don't think I know how to do that. If there's a way to do it, I don't know it. We could simulate a phaser with a delay. That's how I'm used to doing it. That'd be like a chorus effect. So how do I want to do this? I want this to be like, we have more attack phase so we can hear it more subtly. Okay. So you can hear the attack phase ramping up, then it goes down to the decay phase, sustains there for a while, then goes to 0 again, right? From this release phase. I believe if I max this out, it would go all the way to 0. No, surprised it doesn't go all the way to 0. In any case, yeah. Yeah, simulate a phaser from a VCF measure. Can you explain it to me how it works, Angry Moose? I usually use a phaser module. Okay, so let's use this with a faster attack phase. All right, not that fast. I want more oomph too. There we go. Okay, now we're talking. Less decay. Lower sustain. Let's make it like a pluck. Okay, much less sustain. No release. Now, how come it's... Hey, let me unplug this. Oh, I see. Okay, I'm stupid. From my understanding, it's change frequency of input in linear way and goes back. Change the frequency of the input in linear way, then goes back. Okay. So I think that would be done more with... I mean, well, yeah, we could do it with a VCO. Sure, I can demonstrate that if you want real quick. Let's just get a couple sine waves. Here, I'll save this for now. Sorry about let me save this as, our first filters .vcv. Right. But yeah, my friend Angum's got me curious now. Like a new patch. Yeah. We'll use audio. We'll go to core, get our audio module, get that all set up over here. Direct sound driver I prefer. Let's use our default output. Okay. I want 2 VCOs to get a phaser effect. To demonstrate that real quick. Not core, I'm sorry. I want fundamental. Fundamental, I want 2 VCOs. Let's see here. Yeah, I think we need a pitch shifter, right? Not frequency change, but equalizer change. Yeah, I think that to get a phase shifter the way you're describing, you would probably need some kind of pitch shifter. I can use these modules here though, these VCOs to demonstrate that. We'll go fundamentally get a mixer here real quick. Mixer. Okay. Lower these both down to 0. Okay. And we'll put both sine waves here. I think this should work. More or less, sound like a phaser kind of. Control plus, get some stereo sound. Not that's really stereo. Raise it up a little bit. Get them a little bit bassier, they're not quite as obnoxious. Okay, a little bit louder. Now this be a phaser then? Not really. Maybe if we had sawtooth waves, huh? Maybe it's just too simple of a sound to be perceptible. Sorry guys, getting a little bit sidetracked. This will be a tutorial here, but I feel like this is pretty interesting. This might work. More complex sounds. Like horrible sawtooth waves of these things. Let me. Oh, there we go. It's fine, is what it is. There it is. There it is. You hear the phasing now. Anyway. Yeah, thank you, Angry Moose. Patreon. Alright, sorry guys. That was fun and everything. Let's go back to our actual project we're working on here. We're learning about filters today, guys. A lot of you guys are more experienced sound designers. It's really aimed at beginners. I'm missing the chat here anyway. NYSTHI, Antonio, is arguably the most prolific module writer, although he's been working for the last few months on the VCV version 1.0 porting. Porting to what? Definitely not the most basic stuff, y'all bet. It's kind of as a phaser. In your example, it sounds like a wah-wah. Maybe. It's better than the Universal Intro movie, huh? Alright, so where are we at in this anyway? We're talking about filters today and learning about, what it means to filter a sound, right? We learned that when you close a low-pass filter, it means that the higher frequencies gradually get filtered out, right? You don't hear the higher frequencies anymore. And we can demonstrate that again real quick. Where is our sound here? Okay, here's our sawtooth wave, right? You can hear a lot of those high frequencies. We can take them away by lowering the cutoff frequency, right? Until we have only low frequencies left. Right, and we have pretty much a sine wave shape, but not a whole lot of frequencies left down there, right? All we have is a sine wave visible. One frequency, more or less. I want to control this over time, this frequency, to get like a pluck sound, if possible. So I want to, what do we got here? We have this frequency control voltage scaling. I want that to be maximum scaling. And there's the LFO, is still working. Okay, so why don't I hear anything? Let me see here. Attack, decay, sustain, release. This, oh, because there's outputs I plugged in. Duh. Here we go. There we go. Okay, so let's see here. Okay, that's what I want. So I want to have this scaling go down a little bit. Let's get more decay. A little more decay. Okay, it's not nowhere near what I need here. There we go, now we're talking. We get a little more scaling. Okay, let's lower this decay time. A little bit lower. Okay, little like a bassy pluck maybe. Let's make a little bit bassier sound. Now we're talking. Wah is a bandpass filter with manual modulated frequency. Okay. So Batman's pretty well educated on this kind of stuff. What's up, GV? How you doing, dude? Okay, so let's raise the frequency of this thing a little bit to get more plucks per minute. Okay. Let's try to make it sound a little bit better, right? We wanted to have a... This saw wave is really awful from this VCO, but... Let's see here. Yeah, I wish we had a better saw wave to work with here in the first place, but it's fine. So you guys get the idea here that what's happening to this sawtooth is that its cutoff frequency is changing over time rapidly, right? It's a very short... I'm actually going to raise this up a little bit. There we go. Right, so now we have this change in our frequency over time via the ADSR. Right? Every time it's being triggered to change from this LFO, it's ramping up, so it's going from being a very low cutoff to being a very high cutoff. So you can see this change in the shape of it. Go from a sine wave to a sawtooth wave, then decays back down to being a sine wave again, right? the character is changing over time. Let's get a sustain level here. Give some more release too. And lower the frequency of this. Less decay time. There we go. Let me get some more release time here too. Oh, I see what's happening, I think. Too long of a decay. Oops, I want to lower this actually. Trying to control how often it triggers. Okay, give it some more release time. We have a high sustain level for one thing. Very short release. There we go, now we're talking. Okay, so now we can see the attack phase where it's opening up the frequencies, then closing them again very slightly to our sustain level where it holds for a while, then it releases back down to nothing, right? Yo, let's go Game Influencer. It's fucking an awesome program, dude. I'm a big fan of it. I'll raise the volume a little bit. Right. So we have our attack phase where it goes from being, no frequencies allowed through to all frequencies being allowed through at the very start of it. Then it goes from having all frequencies down to having a sustained level of number of frequencies being allowed through. Right. So it goes up, then back down, then holds at the sustained level. Then it goes back down to 0 again in the release phase. I know nothing about sound design, so I'll have to watch some tutorials, huh? I definitely recommend checking them out. It's a lot of fun. It's been quite a while since I played with a modular synth like this, extensively. There you go. This is the basic idea behind filtering, right? We're filtering out the sounds over time. Now, I want to move on from this. Let's see what time is it. 8:05. I have about an hour left here. I want to move on from this and look at white noise finally. Right? I'm not sure if this software comes with white noise. Let me see here. Fundamental. What do we got here? Octaves, scopes, unity, mixers, VCAs, LFOs. A sequencer? No, I had a sequencer. And an octaves. So it doesn't come with any noise, it seems. So let's get one of our some noise from one of our other modules here. One of our other packages. We got here an AES. Anything? BPM, mixers, mono. So I talked you guys through in the first episode through how to download more modules, right? In real life, in a real modular synth, you would go out and buy modules, like the actual physical metal boxes, right? But in this case, you can download new modules from other authors, right? Not other manufacturers like in real life, but other authors. Many of which do the same things. We have this VCA here, kind of like the one that comes with VCV Rack. We also have a VCO probably here somewhere, just like the one that comes from just like the ones that come with VCV Rack. I'm looking for a noise generator though, which is a very popular module that for some reason VCV Rack does not come with. I don't see one in this package though. Let's go back and check out Bog Audio, one of my favorites. Here we go. I bet there's one here. Okay. X-fades, compressors, analyzers, detune, noise. Here we go. Noise source. There we go. Very simple little noise source here. GV says here, so all this for some high quality 80s porn music, right? Yeah, if you want. Or you can use it to make sound design for sound effects for your video game, like Pokemon sounds, different kinds of cries, explosions, laser beams, gunshots, all kinds of fun stuff. You don't want to use samples, you can make your own sounds. Or it's good for making like electronic music in particular. I have some ambient music I've made earlier. Anyway, so we have this noise source now. Yeah, custom sounds. You can make your own sounds, right? We have a weird little horn here, kind of. If I lower the attack phase, probably be more convincing. And raise the... I need to have a slower decay, sounds like. Maybe less attack. There we go. Give it a little less attack. There, now we're talking. Now we're getting a little more horn-esque. Raise the frequency in general. Ooh. Lower sustain level a little bit. Kind of nice. Lower the decay time. Right, so that's all kind of horn-esque. Anyway, sorry guys. So I know it's kind of annoying. Let me lower the volume there and get rid of that. So I want to now, I'm going to save this as our first horn. Why not? I was use this, save the patch. Filters is fine. Anyway, so let's make a new patch. I want to demonstrate how noise works. And this is going to be a little bit rough on some of y'all's ears. I apologize. I'm going to Bog Audio, in my case, find their noise generator. All it does is generate noise, literal noise. Right, and let you guys hear that. I'm going to put that through a mixer first, though. Fundamental. I get a mixer here. And as before, guys, always lower the volume down to 0 at first, because you don't want that shit to blow your eardrums out unexpectedly. We're going to go to core and get this audio device back. We can get our sound coming through to our speakers. Go to direct sound. Go to a default device. Get the mixture of the output from the mixer and plug it into the left and right using control click to get a second cable there. Okay. And I'm going to plug the noise source. I'm just going to use simple white noise here into the input of this mixer and let you guys hear it. It's going to be kind of rough. It's white noise, for God's sake. Right, that's very low volume. White noise is very, very loud because it has, such a rich frequency content. Right, white noise. You can hear pink noise. That's a little bit lower frequency, and other kinds of noise as well. The most popular are pink and white noise. A little bit more pleasant, right? The pink noise versus the white noise. White has much higher pitch. You can hear the pitchiness, right? You can hear the higher pitches coming through than the pink noise. A little bit lower. Let's look at it in the scope too. Get the scope going here. So let's go to our fundamental library and get our scope. Okay. Move it down here. And plug this mixer into the X input. So we can see the noise there, right? Very noisy. I'm going to lower the volume from on your guys' side. So I can raise the volume on this side. Right. You can see it's just noisy. You can hear it. You can probably barely hear me over that, right? It's just noise. What's cool about noise is that you can filter it and get all kinds of cool effects. Right? Because again, noise is super, super rich in frequency content. Unbelievably rich. Right? It's pretty much every frequency combined. That's why it just sounds like a bunch of garbage. But what I can do is I can get this filter and filter out some of the frequencies. Right? Let's go to our fundamental library, get the VCF, voltage controlled filter. Yes, for our TV, right? Game influencer. By itself, it sounds like a white noise on a TV. We can make some wind sounds, though, very easily. Watch this. Let's go here and plug the input of our white noise into the input of our filter, and plug the low-pass filter output, right? That only allows the low frequencies through. I'm going to max out the cutoff here so we can hear the whole sound. Send every frequency below this knob through to the mixer. It sounds exactly the same. Right? Maybe even kind of like rain. Anyway, so what I can do is I can sweep this sound. It's a good way to make a very simple wind. I used that effect in a patch I had earlier. I'll actually demonstrate that. Let's save patch as. Save this as noise.vcv. So if I go and load the patch we had earlier, right? Use our Steve patch here. It's a pretty complex patch that I made before the stream, right? A few weeks ago, even. It's pretty involving. It's got a lot of modules going on here. As you learn more about sound design, you can make more stuff like this. If you listen, you can hear wind back there. You're going to follow retouch. It's a stream dedicated to this type of audio content. First time here. No, it's a variety stream retouch. We do creative stuff here on Fridays and oftentimes around 6 to 8 p.m. on weekdays. But we're mostly gameplay here. We do a lot of Street Fighter 3 Third Strike and other gameplay, like long plays, RPGs, and stuff. We do also do creative stuff as well. So I'm going to lower all the sounds here except for the wind. Right. So that wind effect there is just white noise being filtered. Right. I'm allowing in more high-pitched frequencies and taking them away. Okay. Allowing some more in, taking them away. Right. I'm controlling that level pseudo-randomly. Right, I'm using the CV, the control voltage input of the filter, through some kind of randomized source, so that it's not always the same change in filter. So again, so I see a little bit of game dev. What kind of game are you being developed? We're making a Japanese-style monster collecting RPG, kind of like Pokemon. Your sound designs are used by game devs, or is this a hobby? This is a hobby retouch. Yeah, I don't actually make and sell games. We're mostly just here hobbyist developers. Okay. Let's bring in this again. You can hear that's just some saw waves being filtered, right? You can recognize that. That ambient sound there. I'm allowing more of the high-pitched frequencies through. Then take them away again. Right. Anyways, enough of this nonsense. Let me lower the volume here. You get the idea, right? That's how you can use that once you're a little more developed. Let's open patch here and go back to our noise. Learn about noise in general. Ooh. It's a little bit loud there. I want to demonstrate that we can use this filter sweep to control the frequency content of this noise, right? More high-pitched sounds in there. Take them away. Only allow low ones through. Even more. Only allow the really deep ones through. Only allow the really deep. Let's raise the volume here. That's the really deep sounds, right? So we're cutting off a lot of the frequency content now. I'm going to cut off less. You can hear more high stuff now coming through. Slowly raising it. Lowering it. Right. So I can use this knob here to control what frequencies are allowed through. This is a cutoff knob, right? It controls the highest frequency essentially is being allowed through. Right. So right now only low stuff's being allowed through. I'm going to allow a little bit more high stuff through. Watch, I'm going to click this and pull the knob up. Allow more high frequencies through. Sorry guys, a little bit loud, I apologize. Yeah, sound design. It's kind of the nature of the beast there. So, again, to the untrained ear, it sounds as though it's increasing in volume, right? But again, it's not just volume. It's the actual character of the sounds being changed over time, right? We're allowing more high-pitched frequencies through. We could raise the volume, sure, like at will. I'm going to try and demonstrate that here. The difference in, so right now, this is at 0 volume, right? That's max volume. I'm going to get a little bit more frequency, though. Okay. So I'm going to raise the volume here. Very loud. Very soft. Very loud. Very soft. You can use that for other sounds. You can use this for, like, like waves, right? Right. Volume over time. All right, that's volume over time. See, I'm kind of just using my mouse here to control the volume. But we're changing not the volume, but the actual frequency content, right? Watch this. See, I'm going to take away the high frequencies now. Hear the difference? That's not volume. That's frequency content. Again, I kind of take for granted that I've been doing this for so long. As a beginner, I might not be able, I might not have been able to recognize that. Right? So now only low frequencies are allowed through. Here's more high ones. Right? It's not a change in volume necessarily. The volume is being changed because as you add in more frequencies, it gets louder. But really, we're taking away those frequencies, and you hear that. Right? It's becoming more piercing. Because we're having more high frequencies allowed through, right? Glad you're enjoying it, Retouch. I'm a musician interested in connecting with developers seeking music for games. Any recommendations on where to start looking around? TigSource.com, TIGSOURCE, TigSource, the independent gamers source, TigSource. Lots of guys that are trying to make games might need some help, for sure. Maybe look on Twitter and use some kind of indie gaming hashtag. Let's see what I'm missing in the chat here. Try game making forums online. There's dozens, and also video game resources, subreddits. Yeah, subreddits for sure. People are always looking for music, for sure. I totally agree. Volume envelopes is what I normally call them. An envelope, a change in time. For VCV specifically, there's communities at VCVRack.com. Okay. Do the guys make games over there? Do you have a value displaying what hertz your cutoff is at? No, I do it by ear. It's not really important to know the exact frequency in most cases. This is the module that VCV Rack comes with, right? Some modules might actually have a display on them that show you the actual frequency cutoff, but the one that comes with VCV Rack is just a knob. It doesn't tell you the actual frequency that's being used there. But again, what's really cool about VCV Rack is that you can download modules from other developers. So when you download VCV Rack at first, it comes with 2 libraries. The core library, which is like for OS type stuff, like for Windows or for Linux or whatever. And then the fundamental library, which has your actual modules, like the VCF, the VCO, the VCA, the LFO, your basic modular synth type modules. But you can go to the website, vcvrack.com, and download plugins. Thank you, Patman. Links are allowed here, Patman. By all means, put an actual link there. You can go to that link there, and you can actually download more libraries, essentially, right? Collections of more plugins. I have installed here the AS plugin, Bog Audio, CF, JW modules, and ML modules. I uninstalled all the ones I thought were kind of non-critical for the tutorial, but I think these ones, the AS, Bog Audio, CF, JW, and ML, they're my favorites for teaching sound design. They have a lot of cool stuff. As an EDM producer, I'm always cutting things pretty sharply and considering the hertz values to precisely layer things for ideal mixing. Been using FL Studio for years. Okay, cool stuff, Retouch. Cool stuff. Yeah, I think that, if you're talking about mixing and mastering, of course you have to be very demanding of your actual frequency cutoff. But we're using this more for sound design, not so much for mixing. Right? This becomes less important. You don't need to have a lot of spectrum analysis to get a sound the way you want it. But it's more important for mixing, obviously, to get things all so they can all be heard over each other. Anyway, so we've learned about noise. We've learned about filtering. Right? And I want to put these two ideas together to make a snare, a very simple snare, right? As our second sound we're going to ever make, right? On this channel for our tutorial here. So a snare in real life has 2 essential components, right? It's the drum, which is, it's a membrane. You hit it, it comes out at a very high pitch and declines rapidly in pitch, and of course in volume. Right? You hit a drum, it makes a sound for a short moment, boom, then it goes silent. That's how drums work, right? And also a snare has a literal net of metal. It's called a snare. Historically, it's called a snare because of this metal net underneath. Not everybody knows about that, right? It's this little metal net that vibrates against the membrane that gives it some crack. That's where the crack comes from, is this metal web, essentially, that kind of vibrates. And that makes noise. So if you're thinking about a snare in terms of simple sound design, again, we're talking about maybe like bit, if you're make like an 8-bit style or a 16-bit style game, you need a very simple sound. You're thinking of it as like a pitch and some white noise, right? The pitch is for the drum, the membrane, and then the noise is for the crackle of the metal against the membrane. So let's use the noise here as the crackle and a simple VCO for the pitch. Yeah, so many plugin packs, man, so many plugins. I found that, of course, it being open source and being available to the public, not all of them have the highest level of quality control, but that's fine, right? People aren't getting paid for it after all. A lot of them aren't anyway. There is the option to actually sell plugins there too, which is kind of nice. But of the free ones, I think I like these ones the most. AS, Bog Audio, CF, JW, and ML. They're my favorites anyway, personally. They're very offer some pretty simple but necessary tools. Let's make a new patch. I'm going to save this first to make sure. We're going to make a snare. Yeah. Let's save this. I'm going to save this as our first snare. I'll call it our first bit snare. It's a very simple sound. We're making some very simple sounds as beginners here. Yeah, the most are free for sure. And again, they're not being paid to make them, so it's kind of hard to complain about the quality. But of course, there are some dedicated and generous hackers who have put in a lot more work and have made a product a little bit higher quality than other ones. Let's check out, go here to our core modules, get the audio again. Put it over here. If you haven't yet, Volt Free has some amazing filters. Yeah, I'm not super demanding in general about filters. Really, what I've been looking for in modules from the plugins libraries have been the basic type stuff, but things that are needful in general. So let's we have this audio. Let's put it in direct sound. Put it to our device. There you go. It's all well and good. Good enough anyway for our purposes. Let's get another mixer here from Fundamental. Mixer controls some volume stuff. Lower it down to 0 as always, so that we don't blow our eardrums out. As beginners, you never know. It's always fun to experiment, guys, and you can't learn without experimenting. So be careful. Right, be careful. All you gotta do is make sure the volumes are at minimum when you have a new sound coming through. Just make sure that's not gonna hurt your ears or anything. Let's grab the mix, put it into the left speaker, control click for the right speaker. We have effectively mono sound right now. We could actually have two different sounds going into two different speakers, right? That'd be true stereo. Here we just have the same signal going to both mono sound. Okay, so let's add in a VCO. I go to fundamental stuff. Get a VCO here to make the actual pitch sound of the drum, right? Drums have pitch sound. So let's review real quick. Plug in the sine wave to the input of our mixer, input 1, and we'll raise the volume here. Okay, sine wave, right? You guys figured that out by now. There's our sine wave, right? Let's control the volume of it over time. Here's that machine. So if you want to control the volume of it over time, of course, what you want is an ADSR, right? So let's go here to fundamental, get the attack, decay, sustain, release, or ADSR module. We're going to control the volume of it over time. So let's plug the output of this into the CV1 of the input, right? So now we have a CV controlling this this volume now for us. We can control it manually still, right? I guess maybe not. Now it's just relying on the CV. Anyways, that's fine. So let's get an LFO for the gate, like before. Fundamental library, get the LFO. We're going to use this very slow square wave as the gate for our drum. Right, here's the square wave plugged into the gate. Right now it's a little bit fast, lower down a little bit, so we have a little less frequent drum hit. Boom, boom, boom. Okay, that works. Please save your basic setup as a template.vcv in the same folder as autosave, and every time you click new, you already have your audio. That's a good idea, Pat, man. Good idea. I like what you think, dude. I'm about to fail this fucking class. What do you mean, machine? What class? Why? Are you not studying enough? You got me worried, homeboy. Explain yourself. Okay, so now we have this attack, decay, sustain, release being triggered, controlling the volume, right? So why don't I hear anything? Okay, let's just start at max. There we go. So I have this envelope controlling this change in volume, right? It's very slow. There we go. Now we can hear it a little better. I don't understand any of this shit. I hope you mean this. I hope you mean sound design. So you haven't kind of worried like you're talking about a real class. Or are you? There's no test, homie. This is all going live on YouTube, you know, and you can watch it at your leisure later if you want. I know I'm talking kind of fast. Anyway, so we have this change in volume now over time, right? Being controlled by the ADSR, which is being triggered by the LFO. Okay, so now we need to give it more of a crack. There we go. Less decay. No sustain, of course. Drums have no sustain. They're just on and they're off. Right. Okay, I like that. There. A little bit of a bonk, bonk. Right. Kind of drum-esque. But to make a real drum, you have to have a change in pitch over time as well, right? Not just a change in volume, but a change in pitch happens when you hit a drum. So let's get a second ADSR. Right. Let's put this here. I need a second one right now. Fundamental ADSR. And we're going to feed this same LFO in as the gate for this one as well. So they trigger at the same time. Right? When you hit a drum, you get a change in pitch and volume. A college course. What college course, machine? Yeah, it's a really nice interface, right, Retouch? It's based on a real modular synth. Again, in real life, you'd have metal boxes, and you screw them into this rack, right? It's meant to emulate that sort of same experience. You have to go out and buy these modules and plug them in with cables. But thankfully, in software, it's much cheaper. Let's put it that way. Much, much cheaper. All right, so let's, we have this little boonk, boonk sound now, right? Let's change the pitch over time by plugging the output of this ADSR into the frequency or octave input of this VCO. Okay. Kind of annoying. Let's unplug that shit. So basically what's happening here is that this ADSR, by its nature, sends out a signal that starts off at 0 and goes to maximum, and then it goes back down to 0 again, right? And for the frequency, of course, that's a very, very, very low, below audible frequency, and then a very high, super high pitch frequency, right? So for a actual drum type sound, we have to use kind of what Patman's talking about, like some kind of attenuator. We're going to use a simple VCA in this case. Let's see here. For the beginners, you might not have all these other modules. VCA is going to work fine. It's math, huh? College math? Oh, you mentioned that before, dude, about how you're in a stupid math course. Well, bro, take your time, man. You're a smart guy. It sounds like you need to do you need to walk back through the basics. You need to walk back to the basics and kind of review what your class may already be way past. In order to understand what you're doing, machine, you have to, of course, understand the fundamentals, right? The basics. That's kind of where you're lost at, right? Maybe it makes sense to go back and restudy some stuff. Oh yeah, so Batman's quite experienced. He knows all the good modules. All right, so we have this VCA here. I'm going to use this to control the amplitude of this change in general. So let's get the output of the ADSR, plug it into the input of our VCA. It's a voltage-controlled amplifier, retouch. It changes the amplitude of a signal going into it. So for an audible signal, this would be the volume, right? We can control the volume here. But for a CV, we're controlling the basically the scale of it, like how dramatic it changes, right? And we can scope it. Let's see here. Go to our fundamental modules and go to our scope and plug the output of this into nya. Right. So by default, this ADSR, it's jumping from 0 to maximum and back to 0. See it? Right. But that's causing a problem with our VCO. Because the VCO, the 0 input for the frequency is super, super deep below audible levels. And the maximum frequency is super, super pitchy and beyond being tolerable. So if I were to lower this VCA, lower the amplitude, see, it doesn't jump anywhere near as high now. So that's going from 0 to a fraction of what it was before, right? So it won't go to that same level of obnoxious pitchiness. So the machine says, backtrack. Right, I'll go back in time and stop my professor from being born. Thanks, Nick. I knew I could count on you. That's one solution, machine. But there's many solutions. And only a small fraction involve time travel. But yeah, it sounds to me like maybe you need to go back in your syllabus. You know what I mean? And maybe try and approach things you had problems with originally, and now have a look at them again. That sounds really frustrating though, dude. I apologize. You have to go through that. Anyway, so now we can use this to have a less dramatic frequency change. All right, let's use that here. So I want to lower the frequency in general, first of all. Right, so it's not as pitchy anyway. And I want to unplug this for now. Get rid of the scope. Don't need it. Right-click, delete there. And I'm going to plug this, the output of this amplifier into the, there. Right. So now the change in pitch is not as dramatic. I can make it more dramatic though. Right. It gets really, really, really pitchy. So I want to kind of control the difference in pitch using the amplitude of this ADSR. Right. Now, of course, it being a drum, it has to be a very fast attack. It doesn't actually, in a drum, you don't hear it going from, low pitch to high pitch. You only hear it going from high to low. So I'm going to make the attack phase like instant. Okay. Really pitchy. Okay. There we go. Okay, so we have this sound that goes instantaneously from 0 to maximum. I want to have this decay phase be shorter too. Right. So now it's going from the maximum pitch to the minimum pitch. I'm going to lower the sustain to 0, just like drums don't have any sustain or release. Right. So it's going from that maximum pitch to a very deep pitch. Very quickly. I'm going to lower that time, or raise that time. Right. So you can hear the change in pitch more clearly now, right? I made it take more time. You hear it going, whew, right? From a very high pitch to a very low pitch. But in a real drum, it happens very, very quickly. Let's lower that time. We'll try something like that, right? We're going to raise the frequency in general. No, see, it's too slow still. I'm going to lower. There we go. Okay. So we'll use that for our basis right now. I'm going to save this. Now we have this kind of a drum sound, kind of sounds more like a bongo really. But a snare drum actually has, again, that metal snare that cracks underneath. Let's get some noise. So let's just put some noise down here, I guess, huh? We're gonna right click, go to our bog audio I had before, right? It has a nice noise envelope, excuse me, a nice noise generator right around here. Oops, I'm sorry, I missed. Let's see here, bog audio, noise, right here. Okay, that'll do. Nice. So I have this noise. It's gonna go through the same volume envelope as the I'm sorry. I don't know. Let's give it its own volume envelope, right? So let's go here and make another ADSR. Go to fundamental. Get the ADSR, because the actual crackle of the net of the snare is going to last longer than the pitch sound, right? So I'll give it its own little envelope here for the volume. We're going to hear it for longer. It's going to have a little bit more resonance over time. So we've got this ADSR controlling pitch of our drum. Here's the volume of the drum, right? And that's plugged into the control voltage of our mixer on the first mixer slot. Let's plug this one in to the second input, right? The CV of it. So now we have the second envelope controlling the noise volume over time, which don't hear yet. Right. Let's plug the. This is going to be. Here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to plug in the noise right here. Lower the volume here on this side just in case. I think it should be fine though. So I want to plug the white noise right into this second mixer slot. Let's hear it. I don't hear it because it's ADSR, I think. I'm going to unplug this. Let's see here. There we go. So now we have this drum sound. And we have this white noise, right? I control the volume with this second slider here in the mixer. That's the volume. So snare is a tiny sine blip and white noise decay exactly retouched, more or less. That's a very, very simple snare. We're kind of going through some very, very simple sound design for beginners here. But yeah, that's essentially a snare. Right? It's a little blip of a sine wave, or you can use a square wave, whatever you want to use. We can use a square if you want. And also a little bit of a white noise decay, right? A big loud crack, then a little decay in the white noise. So we have this white noise, but it has no dynamics. It has no change in time, right? We have this ADSR for that, though. Let's actually implement that right now. So I have this ADSR here. Let's get the output of that. Put it here, and we'll get the gate of this LFO, the square wave, and use that to control the gate, right? Let's see if we have a change in time now. I bet we do. Yes. So I have this change in time, right? But it still doesn't sound like a actual, the gated reverb for the 80s. We could actually do that today, right? Kind of, with this snare. Anyway, we'll worry about that later. Might not have time. So we have this change in time, but the ADSR is all wrong, right? This is all wrong. It has way too long of an attack, way too long of a decay. It has sustain. All right, let's get rid of sustain first of all. And the release. Okay, it's still way too slow. Right? Let's make the attack way faster. Okay. Already sounds a lot better. Let's raise the volume. Let's lower the volume of the sine wave. There you go. Okay, let's reduce the decay a little bit. Okay, a little bit nicer. Nice. If you swap mixer to AS, you get channel mutes. Oh, really? Oh, you mean the AS module? Okay, that's cool. All right, so there. So we have this very simple snare. We have a very simple kick on the other module, right? So I really wanted to use this as an example to demonstrate to total beginners, because it's not really a course meant for EDM or for even sound design, really, like for like games and stuff. It's really more aimed at people that are curious about sound design and understand the very basics. So the basics really are, you have your sound, your raw sound, like a VCO emulating, putting out a sine wave or a triangle wave or a saw wave or a square wave, or your white noise, and you're changing its character over time, right? Sound, as we know it, the design of sound is just some frequencies that change in essentially pitch and volume over some course of time, right? We can use LFOs to control that. We can use ADSRs to control that. We can use filtering to filter out frequencies. We can use the amplifiers to control the volume or mixers, right? So by putting these modules together, we can make these relatively complex sounds from very simple sounds, right? So we've got about 20 minutes left here on the stream. I think what I want to do is play a little bit more with creating sounds, right? We're creating our own sounds now. So we have this snare. We made a kick earlier. I think the snare came out a little bit nicer than the kick did. Right, very, very simple snare drum here, using only a VCO. Let's get rid of the VCO. Let's get rid of the sine altogether, right? So a lot of Game Boy games would just use this for the snare, right? Also, maybe even the hi-hat, to be honest. Right. But by having this sine wave in here, right, this is max volume, right? You have that element of the drum, right? Because a real snare is a drum and a literal a metal net, right? So by mixing them together, we can get what we want, right? The old school Game Boy, right? You barely perceive the sine at this point, but if you remove it, you notice it's gone. Right. Right. That's kind of what the sine wave is there for. Add a little bit of punch, as Retouch mentioned there earlier. Have you had a chance to play with FM synthesis? Yeah, I have. It's depending on the software you're using, it can be a nightmare, but it's also really nice sounding. We can do that right now if you want. Let's fuck around with that, and we'll talk about what that's all about. Let's make a new patch here. We're gonna have some very low volumes here. Trust me. We have some very low volumes for the FM. Let's disobey our friend Pat Matt and just simply get this all set up again. Yo, BD Fury, 500 bits, man. Hey, Venka, unrelated question. Did you pick up any fighting games during the Japanese sale on Steam? No, I didn't. What was the Japanese sale? What did you buy, BD Fury? Maybe the bits. That's a lot of bits, man. Holy smokes. 500. Oh, plus 50? Damn. That's crazy. That goes a long way, homeboy. So let's go here and we'll go to our core, get our audio again, right? Put this in direct sound mode, get our default device. All right, so now I want to get a mixer. We'll just use an amplifier for now. So we're going to go to the fundamental library, get a VCA. Use that to control volume, right? Lower this down to nothing. Get a VCO. I talked before about how the VCA, the amplifier, the voltage-controlled amplifier, will take any signal and change its amplitude. Right? So for a CV that controls the scope essentially, the scale I should say, and for audible sounds it controls their volume. So we have a VCO here. Plug the sine wave into this, and plug this into this and this. I can use the VCA now to control the volume. Right. I actually have Skull. So how about Unist, Guilty Exerd, and Skullgirls? I think I own all three of those. I think I own Unist on PS4 though. I think I actually have Guilty Gear and Skullgirls on Steam, if I'm not mistaken. This controls volume now. I control it with my mouse. Let's do some. Well, first of all, let's look at what we mean by FM. Right. So FM stands for frequency modulation, and we're actually modulating the frequency or the pitch of this VCO. We'll do it right now with an LFO. Right. Fundamental. Get an LFO here. Plug the output of the LFO, sine wave we'll do in this case, into the V or octave. The voltage octave or whatever, into the VCO here. Really annoying sound. Right. Basically what we're doing here is we're controlling the pitch of it over time. Right. Going high to low, to high to low. Right. But crazy things happen when you increase the speed of this. Whoa. 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 Nice. Right? So all we're doing is we're increasing the speed of that change. Right? Doing it again. So we're talking about FM, frequency modulation. We're not talking about, I mean, we're literally right now modulating the frequency, right? We're modulating the frequency. But we're talking about FM, we're talking about using a speed. We're changing the frequency at such a speed that the actual modulator is itself audible. And I'm just explaining what FM basically is, Pat Man. I'm sorry, I've been reading that as Pat Matt. You're actually Pat Man. Sorry. So, if we were to change the frequency of this oscillator at a frequency that would also be audible, what you have is some really crazy results, the sound that results, right? And what's interesting about that is that at a hardware level, that's relatively easy to implement, right? That's why it was kind of popular back in the 80s in particular. So let's delete this and get another VCO here. So now we have two oscillators, both working at audible frequency ranges, right? I'm going to plug in the sine wave of this into the FM of this to control the actual frequency modulation part of it. And let's lower this down very low for now. And I'm going to raise the volume here very slowly because FM can get kind of nuts. Okay. It's not working the way I expected it to. Not working at all. Okay, let me plug this into the other slot here. What's up, Amarika? This is what you're watching. Tonight we're going to be watching... Oh, I'm sorry, BD Fury is watching something. I missed it. Guys, tonight it's going to be a pizza and a movie right after this in about half an hour. We'll be watching a movie called Indestructible Man. Oh, thank you, Batman. I'm sorry, I didn't notice this here. Whoa, I scared the fuck out of me. What's up, mutant? How you doing, dude? My God. Okay, here we go. Now we're talking. Let me lower this back down again. Okay, so let me go down here. Because now we're modulating the frequency. Thank you for your help, Batman. Oh my God. Alright, so I'm going to raise the pitch here of the modulator frequency. And we're going to blow some shit up here. Thank you for the follow, Amarika. You're a friend of my friend BD Fury, huh? Any friend of Fury is a friend of mine. I'm going to lower the volume here a little bit. Okay, guys ready? Okay. Kind of cool. Let's use a different shape. Let's use that triangle wave. Once again, I'm gonna lower the volume here, guys. Can be kind of loud if you're not careful. Plug this in. Let's go, Faust. Take a photo of it, dude. Use a saw wave here. Ooh. 2 a.m., huh? Okay. Be careful, guys. Ooh. Ooh. Kind of fun. As Retouch says, good for making gritty sounds these days. For bell sounds and that kind of thing. I used it for tubular bells before. It'd be pretty fun. Let's control some stuff over time. We have about 10 minutes left here, guys. Might as well goof off some FM, right? Let's use this sound here. I'm going to lower the pitch to get a more of a hum for now, so it's not as obnoxious. Let's change the pitch over time. Let's get a fundamental ADSR here. Right. I want to use this to control the pitch of the of this thingamajig here. Okay, probably want to have a amplifier in the way though. Let's do that. Fundamental, so we can control the scale of it, like last time. VCA. Let's do this. Perfect. Perfect. About to gain 5 pounds overnight. Me too, Faust. That pizza I ordered is amazing. I can't wait for it to get here. Got some other deliciously greasy stuff that's bad for me as well. Not just pizza, holy shit. Grab some Street Fighter 5 real fast. I'll be back for the movie. Good stuff, Jiffy. It's going to be here about a half an hour. We're going to start it, I think. Probably a little bit less than that. All right, so now we have this ADSR. Let's use a LFO to control it. I ordered a Philly cheesesteak pizza, Mutant. It's got steak on it. It's got peppers. It's got everything. It's blowing my mind. I can't wait for it to show up. It's going to show up here in about 20 minutes, supposedly. Let's get this, get the LFO I want from the fundamental. Use the LFO for the gate. Again, I like to do that on the stream here. I think it's pretty easy for beginners to understand. Relatively. We're going to use the square wave. Ooh. I want to... Okay, I want to... let's see here. I want to change this to be like instant attack. No sustain. Okay. We'll control some volume as well here. Okay, let's get another VCA. I like it. Okay. We'll use the same ADSR for both volume and pitch. Okay. All right, I like that. Let's grab the output of this. Plug it into this first. There we go. Nice. Raise the volume now. A little bit safer. Much I can raise it here too. Okay. Squism says, so far it's been sounds. How would you make a song? Programmatically change frequencies. Squism, you would use a DAW for that. Right? You wouldn't use this for that. I've made songs here before for fun. It's really more of a exercise. You wouldn't really use this software to make a song. This is really only for making instruments, Squism. You use this to make an instrument, which is kind of like a sound, right? You'd use a bunch of these to make your various parts in your song, and use a DAW like Ableton or Reaper or whatever your preference is to actually put the song together. I'm gonna play this for a little while longer, Squism. I'll let you check out my ambient track that I made earlier using this method here, using this software. There's a huge amount of VCV only music out there. Oh yeah, it's a lot of fun. It's just not really that practical. It's really more of an exercise. It's like a project. Okay, so let's see here. So I want to let's see what we got here. Actually, what would make sense would be to control not this pitch, but the other pitch with this. Lower the volume here. I want for this ADSR to control not this pitch. Excuse me, not. I'm sorry, I'm mixed up here. What's plugged into what here? So this ADSR, it's going into this, the output of which is going to, oh yeah, this frequency. I want this to go here. Oh, now we're talking. Let's see, I want this to change a little bit slower. Ooh, okay. Okay. But even higher amplitude change. Ooh. All right, that works. Ooh. So I could make a great sound here and save it as a voice to use as MIDI. Essentially, Squism, yeah, essentially. Yeah, like Patman says, you would need some kind of other module to kind of bridge the gap, or you could use MIDI to do it. I would recommend using MIDI personally. That's more fun for me. But yeah, let's end the stream here by looking at this little module we made earlier off stream. Let's save this. Let's not even save this. Let's just open up. I'm sorry. Open up this again here. All right, this one right here. So, this is sort of a song, kind of an ambient song. I'm not exactly a VCV Rack Pro, so I can't really say that this is a representation of what the software is capable of at all. But I find that when you're using a modular synth, you want to make music, you typically want to make ambient stuff, things that are kind of randomized, because I think that having a dynamic voltage control really lends itself well to sort of randomness and things that are sort of procedurally generated, right? Sounds like faster than light music, huh? FTL sounds here. And I never played FTL that much. Played it very briefly. But yeah, but because we have all these modules here that work with white noise being sampled at certain, sampled and held, you can sort of create music. I call it, wind chime style, where it sort of generates procedurally, right? To me, that's the real advantage of trying to make music in a modular synth rack. But really, I wouldn't recommend, again, making a whole song this way. It sounds like from what Patman mentioned earlier, you probably can find examples of where people have made entire songs using VCV Rack. Let's see. Not sure if this works or not. I used to have drums here somewhere. There's a ton of sequencers out there and such in VCV. Oh yeah, sequencers and stuff for sure. Kind of fun. Yeah, I think I actually have a few sequencers installed already. But yeah, again, I think that if you're setting out with the goal to make music, like I said, it depends on the genre. I mean, there are probably some genres that really would benefit from being done in a modular synth creatively. But I think that in general, you're probably better off learning an actual DAW. It would be great for a game jam, huh? Again, I think maybe a game jam requires development fast enough that you probably wouldn't want to screw around too much with modular synth. It's really a more fun as a way to learn sound design, at least for me. I'm sure Pat might disagree with me, but I think that modular synth is super powerful, super fun, but it's really excels as a hobby. I think if you're trying to be productive with it in terms of game design, really it's mostly used for learning and making some more personal sounds. You can make your own sounds, right? It's kind of nice. But if you want to actually make a game fast, you might want to use samples you'll find online on various resources, Reddit. There's a lot of free sounds to use if you want to make a game very quickly. This is really more for enthusiasts, but it is a hell of a lot of fun, man. It's a lot of fun. I'm gonna go over a short break, guys. Come right back with some pizza and a movie, guys. We're a variety stream here. We do all kinds of different content, not just sound design, not just creative stuff, but also stuff gameplay, Street Fighter. We're gonna be starting Dragon's Dogma very soon, sometime after next week. We also do some programming here, some game dev, Python in particular, a little bit of web dev as well. If you guys want to help out, Patreon's always there at patreon.com/Vencabot. Even $1 helps me buy gas and groceries and food. I stream for 40 hours a week every week. It's a lot of content. New video goes live on YouTube every day at youtube.com/Vencabot Archive. Go watch some more Python. Go watch some more sound design. Go watch some more gameplay over there. Again, new video every day on YouTube. I'm going to go a very short break. Come right back with pizza and a movie. I'll see you guys very shortly. Thanks for hanging out, guys, by the way. Patman, Squism, all of our new friends here. You guys made the stream a lot more fun than I expected it to be. What's up, OD Trey? How you doing, dude? Teach their own, indeed, yeah. That really depends. The process you use is going to shape the end result, right? If you use a modular synth to make your music or your sound, it's going to have a certain character to it. You guys ready for this? Which you might find to be ultimately beneficial to your game. Other fucking Yoshi, son! Yo, Trey, I'm just chilling, homeboy. What's your question, dude? You looking baked as fuck. We're on a very short break here, guys. I'm gonna probably get my water refilled, get the movie set up. Here, every so often on Fridays, we'll do a pizza and a movie, or I watch a public domain film. I don't have to worry about copyright that way. From the 50s to the 40s to the 30s, kind of watch a black and white movie, eat some pizza, have a good time. If you guys are into that kind of thing, definitely hang out. If not, totally understand. We usually do creative stuff here Monday, Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday from around 6 to around 8 p.m. Eastern. Odie said, I saw you writing how you wanted to program, not the actual code. What was that? What do you mean, what was that? It's the design process, Odie Trey. Not sure what your level of experience is with, I think you mentioned you got 0 experience in programming in general, but yeah, if you kind of program a lot, you're going to sort of come to a point where the architecture and the design is as important as coding. Right? You want to decide how you want to handle things before you actually do it. As a beginner, it makes more sense to just kind of go in and see what you can make happen. Dynamic events, yeah, it's actually not a programming thing, it's for our game, Trey. It's not really, strictly speaking, a Python thing, it's more about how the game works internally. In our case, certain things in the game trigger events, Like if if one monster attacks another monster, it'll trigger a variety of events, which we can then read and make things happen based on that, right? Sometimes the 20s and the 10s and the 00s. Maybe one day. Good vibe. What's up, good vibe? It wasn't really a Python thing, Trey. It was really more like a our game kind of thing. I was talking about how when things happen in the game, other things gotta happen. Hence events. So we got KO Fiend playing Chun. Wow, already got stunned. That was it, right? Chun. Yeah, because KO Fiend playing such a.
We got good vibe.
It's not really a stun kind of.
It's almost time, guys.
Nice. Wow! Oh my god! Oh my god! Oh, someone clip that whole round. Do me a favor. A personal favor. Wow. Someone clip that whole round. Good luck, Trey. If you have any questions, let me know, dude. Thank you, Patman. So that being said, I don't want people to follow and be disappointed when they find out that we only do this sort of thing once in a while. So it's a variety stream. We do all kinds of crazy content here. I think VCV Rack is, a relatively small part of it. But I appreciate the thought, though, for sure.